All right, everyone. Thank you for coming. I know it's the midterm week. You must be very busy, but I'll try my best to help you make some progress on lab number 3. So let me just talk about the agenda I'm thinking about today. And then I'll try to leave some, so I would say the best way for you to ask question would be, whenever I actually go over any items you believe that's relevant, please just either interrupt me, just speak up, or you can just type something on the chat. Either way is okay for me, okay? Okay, so the agenda for today, just as for you to know, I'm going to first go over the work items for lab number 3, so you don't miss anything, before the submission deadline. And then I'll mention about the part for lecture number 6. Officially, you're only due to start lecture number 6 today, actually Wednesday. So I'll tell you which part you may want to watch simultaneously when you're doing your lab number 3. I'll tell you. Okay, and then the most important part will be, I want to give you a little bit more idea about how you can make some incremental developments for your ETF, especially how you can do the undo redo. Oh, Robbie, you cannot hear me? Can other people hear me?
Yes, Professor, we can hear you.
Okay, so Robbie, you may want to reconnect your audio just to make sure. Otherwise, it seems like the audio is being recorded, so maybe try again. Okay, let me just type. So guys, let me type messages. And then number 2, it will be about a demo for implementing partially the undo redo. I think this will be some design pattern, quite an easy one, but I'll try to visualize how it works at the runtime. I'll give you some starter code to think about. Hopefully that can just clarify your understanding. However, the design I'm going to give to you is not a perfect design. I would suggest something for improvement for you to prepare for your submission. Okay, and then finally, one of your fellow student, Amir, he mentioned that if we can just go over some demos for the game. So I thought the best way to really benefit everybody is to go over the 3 given acceptance tests. So I think I can at least go over 1 or 2 of them in details, and then the third one will be very straightforward for you to follow the same idea. Okay, so that'll be the agenda for today. But as I said, if there's any relevant question you want to interrupt, please feel free. Okay, I don't mind interruptions. Okay, so now let's first of all start with the work items. Okay, quickly. So if you go to your instruction. Okay, so that's your lab 3 instruction. Let me just go over very quickly the parts you want to pay attention to. So if you go over that, okay, of course, don't forget it's individual work for sure, right? And then most importantly, you have to notice about the grading criterion for the lab. So this is very different from how we graded you for lab 1 and lab 2. For lab number 3 and also your upcoming project, we got 2 more programming and design assignments for the rest of the semester, lab 3 and also projects. Both of them will be to do with ETF. So you have to make sure the way you do the test will be just doing how we run regression tests, as we said in the ETF tutorial video. Just be careful with the grading criteria. Okay, and then if there's any issue you think the Oracle is not really behaving consistently, please report the issue to the course forum. And Kevin, one of the TH, he will also be actively helping you and myself as well. Okay, the work sequence for the lab. Okay, you can take a look at that. And don't forget, there's a section 9, which I'll show you. It's been updated since yesterday already about a short design document you have to prepare, bound diagram plus something else. I'll go over that with you quickly. Okay, most importantly, I would say you should really get started, if you haven't, and try to complete the ETF tutorial, I would say by the end of this week, the latest. Because if you actually don't complete this ETF tutorial, you will simply just get lost. Okay, so please get started. And then the example about undo redo I'll do today is to use a bank example to just build a even more simplified bank example for undo redo. Especially just undo. Redo will just be symmetric. All right, and then just remember every time when you got your ETF project, you should really switch to the command line mode immediately. So just for regression testing right away. So that'll be my suggestion. Because when we grade your submission, we assume you're going to keep this flag active for the command line mode. Just be careful. If you got into the GUI mode, we wouldn't be able to grade your submission automatically. Okay, and then you're supposed to study the undo redo pattern for your implementing your game. It's part of the implementation. And I will point to you specifically you want to pay attention to two diagrams in the chapter 21, right? So the diagram number 1, you want to look at page, I believe the 700, okay? If you look at page 700 here, so this is the inheritance hierarchy you want to build to really for your undo redo pattern. I'll give you some example and some idea when I do the demo, but this is the inheritance diagram you want to get into, especially for every command is going to have to execute and undo. I'll also show you example today, so you don't have any confusion. And then another thing I will emphasize once I get there, don't really get confused between the command and also the ETF command. Command is something that you have to define yourself in the model cluster, whereas the ETF command is something that's generated by the ETF framework. So these are two separate clusters. You don't want to get confused, okay? I will try to emphasize again once we generate a starter code. All right, let me go a little further. And then another page is page 705 over here. So this part is really about how you can implement a history list. I would say for this part here, you got much freedom about how you can run the how you can implement the history. You can use a linked list, you can use a linked node, or you can use array. You can use many other data structure. Either use the one from, you can even use sequence from the math model if you wish, depending on which one you feel more comfortable. So this one is just like a conceptual sketch of how you can implement stuff. All right. So these are the two diagrams I would say you definitely want to pay more attention to. And these two diagrams will also help you answer the written part of your design documents. Okay, you will see that. All right, so that's about what I want to mention about this chapter. Of course, you should really read it, right? Okay, and then section 8.1 is only the background story. So it wouldn't affect your development, so you don't have to worry. Just read it as a background for the game. And then 8.2, of course, will be almost everything about, basically everything about the game, how the game should be played. You should really read 8.2 very carefully. And anytime, if you got any doubts about any scenario that may not be covered by the starter test, you should really try to run the oracle and then find out yourself. But if you really cannot find out, post your question on the forum, and then me and Kevin will actually help you on that. All right. Okay, so that's about section 8, and then abstract user interface. I think this part here, this file, which is given to you in part of the starter code, it's just for you to generate the starter code for Lab3. I presume you already followed the starter video to set it up. So that's that one I don't need to waste your time today. And also this part here is just about how you can actually refer to the enumeration type. You want to avoid over here, basically this information here about A somehow is implemented by 1 and B is implemented by 2. So the main message we're trying to send to you over here is you should not assume any magic number. For example, you should not assume that if A is implemented as 1, and B should be implemented as 2, but apparently it's not the case. So we want to say you should never ever refer to just the magic number over here directly. What you should do instead is try to use the enumeration like a name constant over here if you want to do the movement. Okay, that's something I want to mention here. And then you got abstract states, and then you got other things. Okay, messages. So these are the strings you will have to copy and paste verbatim. So that's something you will have to pay attention to. All right, and also the errors. These are the possible error messages that you should also. And then when multiple errors are actually possible, you should really print the first one that applies. So with a higher priority. Okay. I see some questions in the chat. Let me get to you guys in just a moment. I'm almost done with the documents. Okay, in terms of getting started, so this is the starter video that I made for you. So that one you can watch that to really get things started. Okay, and then the rest. Now I want to say for section 9, so this section here is now just updated. So please make sure you download the latest instruction. That one there will be 2 parts you have to complete. One part is about the design diagram, which is similar to your design diagram for lab number 2. We already gave you the model solution, so you can take a look on our standard. We'll try to release the result. The TA is still grading your diagram for lab 2. We'll try to release the result hopefully early next week, so you get enough feedback for your design diagram. And then there will be another part for the report, 1 page maximum, okay, 1 page. And then you should really put the PDF in the same docs folder like in lab number 2. And you can read through a question you have to answer, for the report, okay? And then, as I said, those two diagrams I just mentioned in the chapter 21, they will help you understand these two questions, right? If you're not too sure, you can ask me again, maybe in the office hour or post on the forum. We'll try to help you further. Okay, and then it's about the submission, okay? Just make sure you include all the stuff over here in the docs folder. Don't miss them, okay? All right, so let me, before I start the demo, let me see the questions you have over here. Okay, so let me just try to go from the beginning. Does CL history works on our own computer? Yes. So what you're saying is basically over here. So this is just part of generated code. Let me show you here. If I just go to, sorry, I think it's here, right? This switch over here is simply the generated code in your root class. So if you, of course, this is available there. So you just have to make sure you comment out this and then remove the comment for this. So that's definitely will work on your own computer. Okay, in order to finish your quiz number 5, do you need to check all the ETF tutorial? No, quiz number 5 that's due on this Friday does not cover anything about ETF. No, okay. I think that in order to complete quiz number 5, you just need a week 5 lecture. All right. Okay, let me see. When we test your code for grading, will I be changing these numeration values? I don't think that's something you want to assume whether we will or we will not. So it sounds to me that you actually want to use the magic numbers over there, right? So I would say when we actually test your code, okay, basically we're going to run acceptance test. For example, we're going to say move, and then we'll say C, for example, 2. And we might say move, and then A, and then 3. So that's how we will test your code. So in this case, you can see we're only using C. From the client's point of view, you're only using the alphabet C or A. So your code should really somehow map from A into its corresponding row and map C into its corresponding row. And how do you do that? The way to do that is by using the if conditional, if necessary. Let me just go there once more. Okay. Again, you should not really rely on whether this number will always be fixed. Okay, you should always just use the name constant over here to refer to them. Okay. So for displaying the grid, do you just need to display row A to E and column 1 to 10? No, not necessarily. So remember in the abstract event over here, let me show it to you. You can see that over here, when you actually say play, right? You can see we got row number here, we got column number here. And the row number can be any number between 3 and 10. So in that case, if we actually give you 5, in that case, you should really do A, B, C, D, E. If we give you just 1, and that should just be A. So it really depends, all right? So you should really try to cover all the general case. Okay, will you receive a 0 if you did not implement undo redo pattern, but did every other command correctly? Okay, I think undo redo pattern is a very important component. How about this? I would say this. If you look at the all the acceptance test that's given to you, because we don't really grade on a command by command basis, that's not how we grade. So I think undo redo is a very important aspect for the game. So I would say you should really look at all the basic ones. All the basic ones, I think each one of them does involve undo and redo, right? The very basic feature for undo redo, which you may not have to cover every possible scenario for undo and redo, but you should at least cover those that's actually in the starter test. I would say in order to really at least to pass the lab, you should really at least pass all the starter test, at least, okay? So you want to make sure, so I would say you really want to guide your developments by using the AT01, AT02, and AT03. So that's something you want to pay attention to. How do you run the Oracle? That's already set in the starter video. I hope you follow that, but I'm going to show you once more today, all right? Any more questions before I start the demo? For the expected case, it only display 1 to 10. Yes, so the 3 test cases over here we gave to you, 1, 2, and 3, for example, you can see. Here, because we only say 5 and 10. That's just one way to run your code. But what if we test you with maybe 3 and 8? In which case, your code should still work accordingly. So the starter tests that we gave to you are just examples, pretty much like the starter test we gave to you in Lab 1 and Lab 2. So you're supposed to actually cover all the other scenarios as much as possible. Any scenario that's not really covered in the starter test, it's your responsibility to really test them against the oracle. That's why we gave you the oracle as well. Okay. Any other questions before I start the demo? Everyone is okay so far? So Robbie, can you now hear me? I hope you can. All right, anyway. Okay, so now I'm gonna start with, Robbie said he's still a little bit confused about how we access the ETF type constraints in the model. Okay, not in the model, okay. So here, about the ETF type constraints, you're still referring to this guy over here, right? Okay, I'll take maybe take this as a last question before I do the demo. What I'm trying to say is you should only worry about whether this particular, well, let's say you go to ETF move, right? Under ETF move, this is the move command that is going to be executed when the user actually invoke the move events from the acceptance test. So now for the move, you're going to get some row integer and column integer. So now for the row integer, you want to know which alphabets it actually corresponds to. Okay, so now in order for you to really figure out what this row is, well, for example, let's say if the row number I'm giving to you over here is 2, for example, right? If somehow it's 2, in that case, does it really correspond to B? Not in this case, right? So now in order for you not to deal with the magic number directly, what you can do is, because ETF moves indirectly inherits from ETF type constraints, as I explained over here. You can try to see the inheritance hierarchy I'm trying to explain over here. You can follow the details to confirm yourself, okay? And then in that case, you can simply just use the name constant A, B, C, D directly. So now if the row number corresponds to what A represents, in that case, you should really move to row number A, right? If that corresponds to B, you should really move to row B, and etc. So Robbie, does it kind of clarify the concern? If not, maybe I can answer your question in office hour. Would that be okay? All right, anyway, I hope that's okay. Good, very good. Yeah, just drop by my office hour. All right. Okay, guys, let me now start a demo, okay? So together with you, okay? Just to give you some idea about how everything works together and then, and etc. Okay. So now let me switch to the remote labs again. Let me just put this away. Okay. Okay, so now in your remote lab, in your red account, okay, let me do the following, okay? So let's say you want to create a new folder, for example, if you want, I want to just do some complete example together with you. Let's say make directory bank, okay? And then I'll cd into bank. Okay, so now it's completely empty, right? So let's do a grammar file just to generate another project. So I would say nano, and then I would say bank.grammar.txt, okay? System, I'll just say bank. And then I just want to have 2 events over here. Let's say we have a deposit, and then with some amount. And let's say it's integer. Okay, and then let's say we also got undo. I'm not gonna do redo for you, so that one will be symmetric. So for that one, I'll leave to you. Okay, only got 2 events over here. Okay, so now so we are now currently in this bank folder here. So let's now generate the ETF projects. So now I'm in the remote lab, so ETF is not available to you. Don't try to generate the ETF projects in your own in your home system. I mean your home machine. It's not available there. ETF dash new bank.grammar.txt and then dot. Okay, it's been generated over here. And then I would say number one thing you want to do is to change the root. Okay, but we can let's just say nano. Actually, let me just compile the project first of all. But the compilation might take some time. Let me just show you one more thing. I can try to run my maybe the iPhone Studio on my home machine. I can also show you how you can copy the file over here into your system. Let me show you that. I think this way will actually work both for the Mac and also for Windows. I'll just show you quickly from the command line. So one thing to note, currently I have stored the bank project under my EECS home directory and under 3311 F20 and bank, right? So that's the folder I would like to copy, okay? Let me now show you how you can do it quickly. Let me just launch a terminal on my Mac. Okay, so this is my Mac over here. Let's see where I am. Let me just remove that from my start from here. Let's say you simply just go to your desktop and then you now want to copy remotely. You don't need to go through the FTP. For those of you who might know this command, it's called SCP, secure copy. And then I want to copy a folder, so it has to be done recursively. And then I want to copy from the remote server, the red account, into my home directory. So what I would do is I'm going to say my -r. So now put your student account over here as Jackie, for example, at red.eecs.yorku.ca. Oh, sorry, I forgot one thing. And then once you have done this, you want to say where to copy over. Let's say I just want to copy to the current directory dot in my home in my local machine, which is a desktop. Okay, let me just do once more. SCP. Oh, sorry, I forgot one thing. So now you want to specify the directory that's in your home account. So you're going to say colon. So once you say colon, it really refers to your home directory on the red account. And remember, it's 3311 F20, and then we actually got bank. Okay, and now you want to enter your password. Okay, it's now copying to your local machine. I would say if you prefer this way here, you can just copy the whole thing at one go. But maybe before you do the copy, you want to e-clean. You want to clean all the ifgens. So now you can see that. So this is the bank. I just copy over to my desktop. Okay, hopefully you can follow so far. And then let me now try to run this on my local machine. The compilation is faster. Okay, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so let me add that project over there. So bank, and then compile. Okay, just give me a few seconds for my computer to compile. And then we'll start from scratch. Eventually, let me give you a little bit preview. Eventually, we are going to build an architecture like this, eventually. Okay, let me just give you a little bit preview, and then we'll go ahead and do it. Okay, so in your ETF projects generated, you always get this ETF command class that is deferred. And then notice that, as I mentioned that in the lecture for both week 5 and week 6, how is a singleton pattern being instantiated in the ETF projects? So over here in the ETF command, which is a common superclass for all the effective command classes. For example, you have ETF deposit and also ETF undo, simply because we got deposit and undo, only 2 events. That's why we got 2 ETF command classes. And then in the ETF command, we actually declare model, and then I already rename it from ETF model into bank. We'll do the renaming together. Okay, so the model over here will be inherited to both here and over here, right? We talk about inheritance. Also, you learned it in the previous OOP course. Most importantly, this constructor make over here is common to also all the descendant classes, which means every time when you create a new instance for ETF deposit, we'll create a new instance of ETF undo. Every time you do it, it's going to call this common version of the constructor, okay? And what does that constructor do? You want to pay attention to this line over here. And this line should look very familiar to you if you have already studied week 5's lecture. You can see over here, we say model access, which is bank access. I also renamed this from the ETF model access. And that class is expanded, and we're simply just trying to call the M, which is a once routine. And that's how we can retrieve a singleton instance for the bank. Okay, that's something you want to make sure you understand. So that means every command over here is going to get access to the same bank. Okay, and there is one arrow I forgot to actually mention here. You can think about over here. There is another client supplier over here, and this one is going to be model access, and that's how we get a model. Okay, Oh, actually, I don't have that anyway. So I don't have the model access class over here. That's why I don't have that. Okay, I don't want to confuse you. All right. So now that's about the classes. And then what about on the model side? On the model side, what we want to do is I'm going to rename the ETF model into just the bank. For your lab number 3, I would suggest not to keep the ETF model name because that's too generic. You want to really have some customized name for your lab number 3. I'll let you work out exactly what the name you want to call. You got complete freedom. Okay. Let me take a look. Only me have the bank project file. That's correct. So I will try to maybe upload the starter the grammar file maybe to the lecture site maybe after today. But for now, if you want to follow me, if I'm going a little bit too fast for you to follow, don't worry. I'm going to make the recording available. Right? Maybe just get an idea. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
No problem. Okay. And then over here you can see the bank over here. So now
this is Jackie.
Yeah.
It would be great if you can speak a little slower because I think you're going a little bit too fast today. Sorry to interrupt you, but
I need to go a little bit slower.
Yeah.
No problem. I'll go a little bit slower. No problem. Yeah.
Thank you.
Please, anytime I'm going too fast, please just interrupt me. I didn't realize that. Okay. So we're also going to create a deposit command class. So now let me just emphasize to you because that will be a common confusion. The deposit command over here versus the ETF deposit. These two classes are completely different classes. So one of your fellow students was a little bit confused about whether this class, as suggested in chapter 21 of the undo redo pattern, is this class supposed to be this class? No, they are independent classes. Okay, that's something I will emphasize again when I suggest improvement later. All right. So that's kind of the, also we'll try to do the history as well, just to show you. I'll just give you some starter idea so you can complete the rest. Okay, so that's about the overall story I want to implement. So let's go back to my iPhone Studio. Okay, so everything is compiling. So let me just start by doing some renaming quickly. Okay, if I go under model, and also notice that we can also go under abstract UI and user commands. So there are only two places you're supposed to touch for your lab 3 and also your projects. One is under the user commands. You can see we got ETF deposit and ETF undo. So these are the, this is one of the cluster. And the other cluster you want to touch will be under the model cluster, right? Let's now do a little renaming over here. So now for ETF model, I want to rename it to, what about just bank? Okay, I will say bank over here. And then you want to make sure you also click on the rename file over here. I think some of you actually forgot to click on the rename file for your lab number 0. That's why your class wasn't renamed properly. Okay, just be careful with that. I would say okay over here. Okay, just from ETF model into bank. And then I will rename this accordingly. Okay, let me just do that quickly. I will say refactor and also rename. So rather than ETF model access, I'm going to say bank access. Okay. Yeah, so for the first time, it's okay. You just gotta hit compile again. All right. So now let me show you the critical classes over here, and then we'll start programming. Okay. So first of all, you can go to ETF command over here. So this is the class I talked about, right, at the top level over here, right? If you look at the class there, the model is now of type bank. And then the way we get a bank is through this expanded class bank access. And then we'll make sure we also always get a singleton access. If you go to bank access over there, let's see it very quickly. You can see the once. That's how the singleton pattern is implemented. So this one corresponds to exactly what you learned in week number 5. Okay. All right. So far so good. So now let me just try to create. Let me start by modifying. Let's say we want to do some deposit, right? Let me just close this. Let me just go to the go to the model. Let me go to the bank, right? So by the most important query you want to pay attention to, you can see when you want to go from command into the bank, right? Let me just annotate that quickly for you. If you want to go from the command into the bank, you can see there's a model over here, right? Think about every time if you want to impact about a string you want to output to the terminal. The most important feature to pay attention to will be the out feature. And the out is like a toString method in Java, right? you can think about some other module in the ETF starter code is going to call this out every time you want to print out the abstract states into a terminal. Okay, so what I would do now is let me just go back there, and then let me say this. By default, you actually got S and I over here. So these are the two variables that's there by default. I would say let me get rid of them first. And then I also don't want the default updates. Of course, I'm going to have some compilation error, but it will be easy to fix. Okay, I'll just show it to you. And then for the abstract states over here, let me say I just want to have an empty one, okay, just for now. And then I'm going to start putting something that's more meaningful. If I say compile, okay, so now let's fix one by one. If you click on the first one, so S and I, they are no longer there. So I can get rid of these two, okay, in the make of the bank. I'll say compile. And then the default update has been caught in the ETF command sites, but they are not, the feature is not there anymore. So the first one, you can see under ETF undo, I don't need this anymore. So delete it. And notice that I want to emphasize again, make sure you always have this line over here as the last line of your ETF command. Always, okay? If you miss that, you're going to have some error when you at the runtime. Just be careful, all right? Another one I want to go to will be ETF deposit, okay? If I go there, I also want to delete this guy here, the default updates, right? Just make sure everything's clean. Okay, so now we are back to everything's compiling stage, all right? So now let's go to the bank. Let's say I want to only worry about the balance, right? Let's say we only got one single account, just to make it simple for demo. So let me just put some stuff over here. Okay, let me just put this. Okay, let me. So what I would do is I'm going to say feature, some attribute here. Let's just say bank related features. The first one I want to have is, let's say balance is going to be integer, okay? And then every time I want to change the balance, I want to have a dedicated command for that. So what about I say change balance, and then change the balance to some new balance. And then I want to have some precondition here. Let's say require. Let's say the balance you're putting there should not be negative, for example. Let's say the new balance you're trying to set to be should be strictly larger than, should not be negative. Let's say larger than equal to 0, okay? 0, let's say that's okay. You know, it's okay to have a 0 balance, for example, let's say. And then we can say the balance is assigned to the new balance. Okay, and then let's say that's what we want to do, okay? Let's now go back to ETF deposit. We'll worry about undo in just one moment. I want to make sure just undo, just want to make sure the deposit is at least working, okay? So now, what should I do when I want to deposit, right? So now, remember also in the tutorial video, whenever you want to do some error checking, you should really do it at the GUI level. In this case, for every command, like a deposit, and also for undo, and for your lab number 3, you want to do for play, fire, move, abort, and etc. Right? All the error handling should be done at the first level over here in each ETF command. Okay. So now let's say we do this. We say if the amount you're trying to pass is actually less than 0, right? It should be larger than or equal to 0. But if that's happen to be less than 0, you're going to have some error. Okay. But for now, I'll just say error just for now over here. I'm going to encode it in a moment. Otherwise, if there's no error, what I should do is I should really try to deposit. In which case, now I want to do some update to the model, right? So now remember we actually got from the ETF command. Let me just remind you once more. From ETF command is a common superclass over here, the common superclass for ETF deposit and ETF undo. So I can definitely refer to the model here. Right? So what I would do is I'll go to the ETF deposit, and then I would say model dot change the balance. Okay. So now what should be the new balance? It should be whatever the balance it is right now, plus the amount. Okay. Everybody okay so far? I hope. Compile. Okay. So now. So what we have done so far, we just introduced some features related to the balance for the bank. Okay, and then let's do some little testing right away. Not really regression testing, maybe just try to run in the interactive mode. That's what I would suggest, okay? Okay, so now we can go to ifgens, and then the system name is called bank, and go to wcode, and go to bank, right? If you only say this, oh, actually, we forgot to actually override the default option. I forgot, okay? Let's do that quickly. If I go to the root, so it's not recommended you stay in the GUI mode, okay? As soon as you start developing, go to the command line mode, okay? So now I will simply put this line into comments. You can see the switch over here, right? And then you will uncomment this, okay? And make sure you compile, all right? Now I can close the root class. So now if I try to do it again, it's gonna say you have to specify a mode. So the only two modes you will need will be either -I, interactive mode, just for running the, for interacting with either your program or later the Oracle. And the other one is -B for the batch mode, okay? So now let's see this. I can now say, let me just clear here. Okay, let me say -I. You can see now nothing is being printed, but hopefully you can see why. It is because if I go back to the bank over here, you can see the out feature. I'm just printing out some empty spaces. That's why it's expected, even though that's not right, okay? And then I can say deposit over here. Let's say I want to deposit $200 into my account. In that case, well, you can see it's still empty. So you can see even though you believe the logic has been encoded correctly, but the output is simply just not right. So that's useless. So you want to make sure everything you encoded correctly as a logic should be reflected properly in the out. So that's the main point I'm trying to make, okay? So let's now try to fix it right away, and then we'll try to rerun. So you want to really get used to this every time when you're doing your developments. Maybe after every few changes, you should really go to the interactive mode or the batch mode to really test right away. You don't want to wait for a few hours and then test. That'll be too late. All right, so now let me say, what should we do? We can simply say you can now expand the result append. And then I can say balance. And then balance, and then we'll say plus the balance. And then say compile. I think that's an integer, so we may have to say out. Okay, every time you want to print out an integer, you gotta say that out. Okay, everything compiles. Let me just do it quickly. So let's do another one. You can see now, things have changed, right? So now balance is actually 0. And then if I say deposit 100, balance 100. Deposit another 200 here. Now I got balance will be 300. Okay. So everybody is okay so far, I hope. All right. So now let me try something funny that's happening right now. If I say interactive mode, if I say balance, for example, 200 over here, that's, sorry. Let me do it again. Just confuse myself. Deposit 200, right? What if I say deposit minus 20? It still says 200. And if I say deposit over here, and then if I say minus 10, it's also 200. So it's not really working well over here. Okay, so what we should do is we should really now try to encode a little bit about error encoding. You want to say every time if there's any error that occurred in your code, you should really try to really maybe have some variable over here in the model that tells you this has been an error. If there has been an error, you have to print out the output differently. Okay. All right. So let's now see this. Let me finish this error encoding first of all, and then I'll look at the chat messages. So now, one way for you to do it, you don't need to follow my way. I just want you to get the idea, right? So let's say has error Boolean, okay? Whether or not you have the error, initially it's simply going to be false. So there's no error in the beginning. And then we're going to say, so whenever you want to kind of somehow, once you print out the error message, you want to turn the error mode off. So you can still continue to do your command. So let me call it toggle. error. Toggle simply means to go from on to off, off to on, true to false, false to true. Just flip the coin, basically. Okay, and then and now we can say that we can say if currently has error is simply true, then has error should be equal to false. Otherwise, as error is false, then we'll set it to be true. Okay, simple if then else over here. Okay, let's do that. And then we're just going to now say that in the out over here. We say if there is an error, in that case, we'll simply say result dot append error. Otherwise, we can say we can now print out the balance. Okay, and then we want to make sure that once we print out the error message, we should really set the error state back to normal, right? Which means no error, because we have already printed out the error message. So over here, we can say toggle. Let me just copy. Do we have that? Yeah. Toggle error over here. Okay, everything's working. So now I need to go back to the user commands over here to do it. Okay. If I go back to the ETF deposit over here, so now if the amount, the input amount is actually strictly less than 0, then we should really set the error state to be, to be true. In that case, I can simply say model dot toggle error. So this one, if currently model error is actually false, in that case, I set it to be true, right? Okay, let's now do something here to try it out. Okay, balance will be equal to 0. If I say deposit 200, that's okay. But now if I say deposit minus 10, error, all right? And now if I say deposit 100 again, so having an error simply means it has no effects on the balance. If I deposit another 100, it's now 300, right? So this is now working, okay? So far, what I have shown you is basically what you have learned already from the tutorial video, but just a very quick recap. And then we'll do the undo redo once I handle your questions. Okay, I'll pause a little bit here. Let me take a look at the chat messages over here. Okay, let me see. Okay, how do you test the interactive mode on Windows? I don't really use Windows myself. I heard from some other previous students, in order to do the interactive mode, there's some little trick you need to do in order to do it. I don't quite remember what it is. I'll try to find it out, and then once I find it out, I can share that on the forum. But I would say if you cannot really test the interactive mode on your Windows platform, in that case, it will be take a little bit of detour. What you got to do is you can use the command line mode, and then you simply FTP the entire project to your Red account server, in which case you can compile the project from the command line and then run the interactive mode from there. That's something you can do, all right? All right, so now, and also about the oracle.exe, the reason that we had that extension for .exe just to indicate that it's an executable. That's it, right? Oh, some of you actually mentioned either from my email or from the forum, something like this. I want to mention that quickly. When you try to say oracle.exe, let's say -i in your Red account, if that simply say permission denied, or some of you also try the ETF, run the regression test, ETF test.py, and also if that also say permission denied, I believe you can easily fix that by simply saying change mod, which you learned, from the 2031, maybe 777, and then you can simply say oracle.exe. So that will change the permission. Did I get it to work on my machine? What do you mean? You mean the Oracle? Oh, okay, good. Yeah, guys, you can help each other, please, on the chat, so that can also save me some time. That's good, all right? But I'll try to maybe read out your solution if that solves the problem, all right? All right, any questions so far about the ETF? Any confusion you have? I think so far the most important point is about how the singleton pattern is used. But I will try to visualize everything together once I'm done with the undo redo. That's what I would do. All right. Okay, let's now program the undo redo. Okay. So basically, what I would do is you can think about, you can see that we got a bank over here already. So what I need to do is I want to introduce two concepts for the undo redo. One is about the concept of command. And for that one, you should really refer to the inheritance hierarchy on page 700 in chapter 21. But I'm going to simplify that. Since I only got one class over here, so I'm not going to introduce any inheritance hierarchy. So you should put the inheritance hierarchy in your final summation. Okay, I'm just not doing that for the demo. Number two, I'm going to introduce the concept about history. So for the history, any linear collection should do. So let me just say an array. Okay, so that's what I will do. So now let's do the following. I only got deposit to really undo. And also, you don't really put any command class over here called undo. You cannot undo the undo, right? So
Perfect.
let's, questions?
Yeah, so a quick question. So can you go back to that diagram again?
Yes.
Yeah, so over here you were saying that as we are having only one command, so we are not having an inheritance hierarchy.
Oh, to be more precise, because it's mainly your task to actually finish that inheritance hierarchy for undo redo. Just since we are limited by time in the Q&A, so I'm not introducing the hierarchy. That's something you should do for your lab.
Yeah, just a quick question over there. So in our labs, we should have a like a command which is a default class, and that will be inherited from the bank, right?
No. What you should have is something like this. Okay. I will maybe mention that again, but since you ask. So if you look at this diagram over here, right? So let's say you follow this structure here. You have a deferred class called command, right? And then you got as many subclasses over here as necessary. Okay. And then, so this, by the way, this is not inheritance. This is client supplier. So your command class does not inherit from bank. It's only a supplier of the bank.
Okay, makes sense.
Okay, yeah, it's okay. I'm still gonna emphasize this again. So please do ask again if you still got confusion. All right. Do I mind pasting out the commands you execute to get? Alvik, are you responding to your fellow student or asking me? Well, which command? To get what to work, so we can remind. Okay, you're asking your fellow student. All right, good. All right, so let's now do the undo redo. Number one, I'm going to create a new class over here. So under user commands, I would say, again, you may also choose to actually create a subcluster. The way to create a subcluster is very easy. The easiest way is go to your project folder, go under bank, go under model. For example, I can call that maybe undo, for example, right? And now every folder I created on the model automatically will be a subcluster. So you don't do that over the iPhone Studio, okay? So now if I recompile over here, you will see that under the model, I got undo over here, right? You can see that's a subcluster. And then I can create just one single class over there. Let's call that deposit command. And then I would say creates. Okay, so that's my deposit command. And let's see how we can program that, right? According to the diagram on your reading, okay, let me just remind you once more, you should include at least the execute and also undo. And also I'll show you some additional details over here, right? So now the idea would be, I'll try to visualize more precisely. But now think about, we got ETF commands, this side over here, and also we got undo redo pattern commands over here. We got two concepts over here. Both of them should be getting access to the same bank, both of them. And only a singleton instance should be accessed by both the user commands that you created for undo redo and also the ETF commands, okay? So now what I will do is I'm going to, again, using the singleton. So that's really something I would like you to understand maybe from today. Let me do it first. So I can say over here, maybe create and make. Okay, so and then I'm going to just give me a moment. And then I would say feature commence. Okay, I can say make over here. And now, whenever I create a deposit command, so I want to initialize its model, basically. Okay, so now I can say bank data access. Did I? It's let me just see. Maybe it's about bank access. Sorry, bank access. And then over here, I can also have a data, right? The model, basically. Let's say the model over here is also of type bank. Okay. So now, how can I be sure? So now you want to compare two things. This is the deposit command, and if I also go to ETF command, right? You can see now we got two classes. In the ETF command, we got model of type bank. In the deposit command, we also got model of type bank of the same type. However, in order to make sure both model variables are really referring to the same instance, the same object at the runtime, you need to use the singleton pattern. And the way to do it is just like this. The way I retrieve the model is by using model access.m, right? So that's what I should do. So if I go here, I will simply say model is assigned to VDA.m. Okay, so this one will make sure retrieve the same model instance, just the same. Okay, so now everything is compiling. Okay, so now let me see what else we need to do. And we also need to store something. Okay, I'll get to that part in just a moment. And then, so these are the undo, redo commands. Okay, let me remind you once more, if you go back to the chapter, you need to execute and also you need to undo, right? So what I will do is I'm going to say execute over here. And also I would say undo over here. And the general principle, the general guiding principle will be these two things will do exactly the opposite to your model. Exactly the opposite. Okay. So now how can we do it? Okay. Let me just do one more thing. Okay. And then you may also, sometimes you may actually want to take, like your constructor take some arguments. And then you should really store the minimum stuff in your command class, right? In your lab number 3, you may just want to store maybe something related to the current location. But now for the bank, I just want to store the amount that has been used to deposit. Okay, I'll show you exactly how that will work. So let's say the amount that I used to actually do the for this particular deposit, let's say the amount will just be integer. Okay, and then the make over here will also be, let's say, the amount integer. Okay, let me just store that here. So A will be assigned to the amount. Okay. So you can see, let me see this. Sorry, amount is assigned to A, the opposite. Okay, let's pause a little bit and think about what I'm doing here. For this particular command class, for the purpose of undo redo, eventually there will be many instances at the runtime of this particular class, and they will be put into some history collection or history array. And then every time you want to undo a particular command, all I need to know is about how much amount should I undo and how much amount should I execute. That's all I need to know. I don't need to store the entire bank objects. All I do is I only get a singleton reference to it, which costs nothing. All right. Okay, so now let's say, what about execute over here? For execute, I can simply say model. You can see the model here, right? The model here is really referring to the singleton access. Okay, I can say model dot change balance. I can say model dot balance plus the amount. Okay, so that one will compile. Okay, so guys, any suggestion about undo over here? The guiding principle will be you always should look at what execute does and then do exactly the opposite for undo. Any suggestion? Anybody?
Model, sorry, Professor. Hello.
Okay, how about Jimmy, since you spoke first? Help me out.
Model balance minus amount?
Something like that, yes. Apparently, you want to say rather than plus the amount, you're going to say minus the amount, right?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. We'll see exactly how these things will work once we get to the runtime. Okay, we'll just do that first. Okay, so that's about the execute and also undo. So that's about the command class. I think for your lab number 3, you will be more or less following the same principle, right? And then let's now go back to our ETF commands. Okay, let me just close these tags over here. So we need to do for 2 commands. The first one will be, let's say also we need an ETF deposit. Let's go to ETF deposit first. So basically what we need to really do is, when there is an error, we don't have to modify the history. We don't need to. The only point that we have to modify the history will be when we actually execute some transaction or we execute some command. That's when we have to put the command objects into the history, okay? But now I need to create a history first. So let me go to the bank. Okay, if I go to the bank over here, let's try. So I just need, how about this? I just introduce another section over here. Undo, redo, related features. So now I'm back to the bank, the model. But now you can see that I'm basically violating the cohesion principle. If you guys recall what the cohesion principle is, it's saying that one class should only serve a unifying thing of purpose. So in that case, I'm doing the bank, I'm also doing undo redo in the same model class. So that's not really cohesive. So another suggestion of improvement will be you should really try to decouple some irrelevant routines for the bank into maybe other class. That's something up to you, okay? So now let's try to do undo redo. So now let's just say history, for example. I'll just say array of. So now what should be the type over here, right? If you say according to this particular architecture over here, I can simply just put deposit command because I only got one. However, more relevant to your lab, it should be an array of, for example, command over here. And this is something called polymorphism, polymorphic array, meaning that at the runtime, each element in the array of history can either be maybe move, or can be fire, or it can be abort, and etc. Actually, sorry, there's no abort. You cannot really undo the abort. It can either be play, it can be move, or it can be fire. Okay. All right. So let's say make it simple. We just not ETF, sorry, deposit command. Okay, and then as soon as I compile, about void safety, because that's a reference type, I need to actually initialize it. So I would say creates history dot make empty. Okay, and then I might also need to, if you look at another diagram over here, you should really have a notion about cursor. And the notion about cursor is kind of similar to the iterated pattern that you did in lab number 2. So now for the cursor over here, I will leave the implementation freedom to you. So for now, I'm just going to fake a cursor using integer, okay? But if you use a linked list, you can also look into how the cursor is being used for linked list, okay? I'll leave that implementation details to you. So I would simply just say over here, let me go back to the bank, and then I would say a cursor over here. Cursor precision, integer, okay? And then I'm just going to say over here, and then I can say cursor precision is assigned to 1, for example, let's say, right? Index 1. You can make it 0 if you wish, as long as you're consistent. Okay, let me go back here. There might be some other stuff I need to change, but let's go one at a time. So now what happens to the deposit? Let me just do one more thing, if you don't mind. Yeah, let me go back to the bank. Let me create some useful command for our history over here. Let's say this. I have another command over here. Let's go add a new command. In that case, command C is going to be deposit command. Okay, and then what you will do is you're simply going to insert C command to the end of the array of the history, and then try to increment the cursor position accordingly, right? That's what you will do. So we're going to say history over here dot force. And then we'll say C over here. You can see all the syntax is actually known to you already from the previous lab. So now it's just about how to put things together according to the ideas you have in your mind. Okay, and then we'll say history dot count plus 1, and then you would say cursor position is assigned to cursor position plus 1. Okay, so now I have one question over here. Would you not want add command to take place in the defer class command rather than its descendants? Yeah, sure. I would say this is completely up to your design. For now, I'm putting everything together. So guys, notice one thing. What I'm doing right now, you shouldn't just, you can definitely base your implementation on that, but you shouldn't just copy that verbatim because this is not a good design. I'm putting everything together into a single class, into a Superman class. But I just want to illustrate to you the idea. To really make it a good design, it will be your job. All right, just let me clarify. Okay, let me go back to the ETF deposit. Okay, so now we are ready. Okay, the only part I'm going to change is this. Every time I actually invoke some command successfully, which means there's no error, right? So that's why I'm in the else part. What I would need to do is I need to add the command into the history. So I can say model dot add command over here, right? I need to create a command. What command should I create? ETF deposit, right? In your case, you might get more kinds of command that you have to add dynamically, right? You can just do something very similar. So I can say create deposit command dot make. And now what information should I store in the command objects? Only the amount that I'm going to deposit, just the amount. I don't need to store anything else, okay? There might be other, for example, there might be other information that's in the bank, which I don't care, right? For as far as the withdrawal is concerned, I only worry about how much amount has been deposited, okay? And now this line here, I can tell you that this line is fine. I would suggest an alternative if to see that makes sense to you. So now, guys, how about this? I will open this as a quick question for everybody so that can help you think. Is it possible for me to really have an equivalent to this line over here, to say rather than calling the change balance over here, is it possible to call something that's actually from the command? So let me just remind you here. If you go to the deposit command, you can see we got execute, we got undo over here. Is it possible? According to the current cursor position. Anybody? I know execute, yes, but do you know, Amir, you're right. We should really call it execute. I agree. But do you know exactly the line I need to write? Make a local variable and then no, we don't need it. We already got this one here. We don't need a local variable. On cursor position, that sounds big, sounds good. And Tempeh, can you suggest to me exactly what I need to type? We need cursor position somehow. Yes. But how? Are you sure? Just history. If I say history dot history over here, Amir, what you're saying history dot last, it's not applicable to the array. Maybe if you're using something like a linked list, maybe, but not for this one here. Okay. So if I say history and then if I say cursor position, is this going to compile? Is history really a feature of the current class? Or should be something else? Well, shouldn't that be model.history, right? And then model.current cursor position, right? And then you can see the history and also the cursor position, they belong to the model, which is of type bank. Okay, that's why you gotta be careful. Maybe conceptually you're right, but it's just not exactly correct programmatically. Okay, let me come back here. And then what should I do? Well, since model.history is an array, and I'm referring to the last position of the history. And then, yes, that's very good. Doris, that's good. So now execute, you can say execute here. Yeah, exactly. Guys, I think you might be more tempted to think this way over here from your ETF tutorial. However, in the context of as history over here, try to think in this way. I will try to visualize how everything is happening at the runtime in just a moment. Okay, I'll put everything together. Okay, So that'll be one thing to go. And then another thing is about undo. Okay, if we go to undo over here, you have to actually do something here. For example, the cursor position should be valid, right? You want to say if the cursor position, model.cursor position. If model dot cursor position, the minimum should be 1. If I say that's strictly less than 1, then I do something. Otherwise, I do something else, right? And over here, I might say maybe error, right? Again, toggle model dot toggle error, all right? Otherwise, I'm going to actually do the undo. So now, anybody, what should I do over here? Shouldn't it be something very similar to before? Very similar, right? Okay, rather than wasting your time, why don't I go here? Basically, very similar to this, but you're right, just say undo. Okay, hopefully you guys are kind of following, right? Let me go back to the undo over here, and then, okay, do that. Rather than execute, it's going to be undo. So you can see it's so important in the model side for you to actually program the execute and also the undo accordingly, right? It's really important for you to do that, okay? So now if I say compile, why don't we give a try? Okay, so now I already compiled. So now if I say this, okay, if I say deposit 100, oops. So what do I have? I have some precondition violation over here. Yeah, I will explain how the undo works at runtime. I'll definitely do it. Okay, let me just fix this guy over here. When I say deposit is going to, okay, so let me see what I did wrong. Let me just go back there. If I say model cursor position undo, okay, and then after that, let me take a look. Just give me one moment. Okay, let me just take a quick look. Decrement cursor. There might be something. Yeah. Anybody?
Do we need to decrement the cursor? Because like if we do undo, then it will go back to the previous.
Yeah, I think I should definitely decrement the cursor. Let me just do that quickly. Okay. Let me go back to the bank, and then I think I need to just also decrement the cursor. Okay. Guys, I think there's some mistake I made. Now that I remember. The initial cursor position should be 0 because initially the history is simply just empty. So that when I say add command, okay, just be careful. By the way, the mistake was not intentional. I really made the mistake. All right. So here, the add command over here, you can see when you add the very first command, you're going to increment it from 0 to 1. Okay, good. Just be careful. All right. And then I want to just do one more over here called decrement. Because once you have performed undo, you want to move the cursor to the left by 1 position. But as I promised, I will definitely illustrate how everything works at runtime once we are done with the implementation. And then I'm going to say cursor position is assigned to cursor position -1. Okay. Let me just make sure everything compile. Okay, let me try once more to see if that helps. Okay. Okay, if I say deposit 100, oops, let me do it again. You just be careful not to mistype. Deposit 100, okay, and then deposit 200. Okay, let's do undo. Undo, so that will undo the 200, right? So it's going to be minus 200, so that'll be 100. If I say undo again, it's going to go back to 0, I think. However, I think, yeah, something about a precondition. Okay, let me just go there. If I go to over here, the bank, I may have to fix the precondition a little bit. Yeah, but that's basically an iterative process you're gonna fix, together with your contracts. I'm programming on the fly, so I can also make a mistake. So if I go to, let me see which one. Change balance is causing trouble over here. So if I go to change balance over here, okay, so now if I say over here, change balance over here, that should be larger than or equal to 0. Okay, change balance, precondition violated. Just for now, let me just comment this out. Just for now, let me see what happened. $200, okay, and then deposit 100. Undo, okay, back to 200. That makes sense. If I do undo again, it's now back to 200. Yeah, I think there's something to do with, we want to deposit 100 and also 200. Did I actually, because you're subtracting from the balance, I think, okay, but I think, let me try to see. Sorry for having a bug. Let me just take a quick look. But hopefully you guys got the idea at least, okay? If I really cannot fix it right away, I will definitely fix it and publish the version that's correct to you. But the overall idea is really the same. But you can see there's some tiny mistake I make. Let me just, give me just 1 minute. We got bank access over here. That's not really the issue over here. Something to do when we actually try to, maybe the deposit command over here. Model the balance plus the amount, model the balance. Seems like the cursor is not moving. Let's try. Maybe you're right. Maybe you're right. Now I see. Doris, maybe you're right. Exactly. Thank you so much. Yes. Under the ETF undo, we are really trying to say after the undo, you should really move the cursor to the left by 1 position. Exactly. Thank you. You guys are better than me. Very good. So model dot decrements cursor. Exactly.
Professor, excuse me. But can't we just do model dot cursor position -1 here instead of calling the decrement function or something?
Yeah,
like
so the thing is, there's certain rule. In order to really decrement an attribute directly, you cannot do it directly. You have to use a dedicated command to do it, like a mutator. You will have to. Yeah. All right. Funny. So guys, thank you so much. Let's try. Hopefully this is working, right? Okay, let's try this. If I say deposit 200, okay, deposit 100. Oops. Yeah, sorry about that. I'll be careful. Deposit 200. Deposit 100. Okay. First undo. Second undo. Yes. All right. If I say undo again, error. Undo again, error. Okay. Guys, it's working. All right. Okay. Any question about the code? If you're wondering about how everything works together at the runtime, that's the next step I will do. Okay. I'll make sure I do it. Any questions about the implementation? Any part? Everybody's okay? Okay, so basically I illustrated all the important ingredients to really make your undo redo pattern work. But there are many small details. Once you get an idea, you don't really need to follow exactly how I do it. Okay, as long as you keep the inheritance hierarchy for the commands and also keep the cursor position, moving accordingly, you'll be fine. All right. Okay, so now, given this, I'm going to talk about how it works at a runtime. It will be quite important for you to see. Okay. So now, assuming that we got a code over here, I'm going to refer back to them, as whenever necessary. Okay, let's now try this. Let's say that's exactly the acceptance test I just illustrated. Let's now understand how things work. I'll try to finish this within 10 to 15 minutes. I may have to run over time if you don't mind, but if you really have to go, please just watch the recording, because I do promise Amir that I'm going to go over some acceptance tests together with you. I'll give you some idea. I'll try to finish by 2:45, the latest. Okay, but let's do this one first. At least by 2:30, hopefully you can get something out of this. So now let's say this: how at a runtime let's say we want to execute this particular acceptance test, right? We want to say deposit, deposit, undo, and undo. So how does things work? How do things work together? Okay, let's say this. Every time when you are calling an event, you're actually going to create the ETF command objects first of all. Okay, so now the first one is we're going to create the deposit ETF deposit objects. In order to do it, let's look at the definition. In order to create an instance of ETF deposit, we have to call its constructor. And its constructor is actually going to call the model access.m for the very first time, right? For the singleton pattern, for the once routine, for the very first time, you're actually going to, and according to that one there, I'm not really listing the code over here, but that one is just going to initialize the bank, okay? And remember to initialize the bank. Let me remind you very quickly. That one there is actually going to, let me see, the main. It's just going to create an empty history array and the cursor position will be 0, okay? So now let's do the first one. The first one here, we're going to create over here, ETF deposit. ETF deposit. And that one there is going to have the model field. And the model is actually going to point to, okay, I'll just put it here. So for the very first time, it's actually going to have this bank objects. Okay, and for the bank, let's list the important attributes for now. Okay, so it will be balance. There will be cursor, I'll just say position here, cursor position. Okay, and also we got the history. Okay, initially balance will just be 0. Position will also be 0, right? That's the mistake I made previously. And also the history is going to be pointing to just an empty array, initially empty history, all right? Okay, that's about the first one. And then let's go on, okay? And for the deposit, once we create the objects, we're going to look at how the deposit is going to be executed, right? Let's just go back here. And that one there is going to see the amount. Oh, by the way, the amount over here is 150, right? So for 150 over there, so we're going to go to the else part. And in that way, we're going to say model.add command and also model.history.cursor, .execute, basically, right? Let's see how we can do it. So now for the first one, when we say model.add command, what we will do is, first of all, we're going to create a command, okay? And now notice the difference here. So we're going to create over here a command objects, okay? So this command object refers to the hierarchy that's actually in the model cluster, right? We're talking about different commands. So this will be deposit command. Deposit command, right? And then the only, there are 2 attributes that are really important over here. So one would be, so the amount is the amount that we try to initialize the command objects. So in this case, it will just be just 150. So the amount is 150. So now, what about the model over here? That's the important question over here. If you look at the deposit command, if you go to deposit command, you can see in the constructor over here, how do we assign the model? We simply say we just got another instance of the bank access, and then we are trying to call M, and M is a once routine. For those of you who may have missed the Q&A session this week, I would suggest just go to the around the ending part for yesterday or for Monday. So there's one part when I talk about when you try to call the once routine on 2 distinct expanded objects, you will actually get the same reference. So that's something you may want to just review that part. That one wouldn't take you long. Okay, so this one we are still getting the same model. Okay, so now if I come back here, so that means the model is also pointing to this particular bank objects. Okay, so that means later on, if I want to execute or when I want to undo, I'm really modifying just the same bank objects. So that's why Singleton is so important for this lab and also the project. Okay, okay, and then let me go back there. And then we're also going to actually do execute over here, right? And also the cursor position will be updated, right? If you go to add command, remember we're going to add increment the cursor position by 1. I'm just going to do it now. So now we're going to increment the cursor position actually by 1 from 0 to 1. And then we're going to actually really increment the size of the history over here, and the history at index 1 is actually going to point to this particular deposit command objects. Okay? Guys, any questions so far? Okay, and then let me just say one more thing. And then if you look at the definition over here, when we say model the history and model the current position to execute, right? This long thing. Why don't I write it down just for the first time? So when I say model dot history at position model dot cursor position and then dot execute. Think about what this is going to happen. We're calling this from the ETF deposit class, right? So that means when we want to go for model dot history and now go to position 1, and then this is referring to this particular deposit command, and then you want to call the execute over there. And when you say execute, what's going to happen? If you look at the execute over here, if you look at the execute, it's going to actually just say model that change balance and whatever balance plus the amount. So that's kind of a conceivable, right? So now what I would do is I'm going to do that, and then I would say, so the amount is simply just 150. So that's something I have done already. Okay, so that's something I need to do right now. So you can see I'm going to increment this 150, the amounts, into the balance over here. So that's going to be incremented by 150. Okay, guys, that's about the very first command we have done. Any questions? Any question before we go on to the second one? The second one is going to be really identical. So I'm going to draw that so I can show undo. Okay, so now for the second one, what we're going to do is, let me use another color here. What about use orange? For the second one, I'm also going to create another command objects. So another ETF deposit. And then its model is also pointing to just the same bank model, just the same, okay? And then we're also going to update the history array over here. So we're gonna, first of all, we're gonna create another deposit command. Let me put it here. So deposit command, that one there has amount, and also it has the model. So what should be the amount? The amount should be 50, right? So if I put 50 over here, and then I'm going to grow the size of the history array over here, and then 2. Oh, sorry. Yes. So now I should really, yeah, I'm going to cross the arrow a little bit. So the model over here is going to point to the same bank objects. And then the second command in the history is going to point to this particular deposit command, right? And then when we actually execute this particular line again, when we say execute on the current position, right? And the cursor position, of course, will be incremented by from 1 to 2. In that case, when I try to execute, I'm going to execute for adding this amount to the balance. In that case, it will be from 150 to 200. So you can think about the orange part is just identical to the blue part. I mean the green part over here that we are doing, right? So the first command and the second command. And notice that this command over here is very different from this command. These commands are only for undo redo. These two are only for undo redo, whereas these two are just generated by the ETF projects and is only for like error handling. Any questions so far? We're only halfway. We're about halfway through the story. Okay. All right, Sam, you actually asked this question specifically. Are you okay so far?
Professor, I'm a little bit confused with like the second command when you call .execute.
Sure. What about it? You mean the orange one?
Yeah. So.
Okay, no problem. So would you agree, first of all, Sam? Would you agree? Number one, we are really calling this line over here.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. When we are calling that line, you can think about that line is really the same as this line over here, right? The same, since we're calling the same block of code.
Yeah.
So now, the difference is, when you talk about orange part, the cursor position has been incremented to 2 already, right? So now that means this part here is actually 2. So that means when you say you want to execute, you're really executing this particular command at position 2. That's what you're doing. And then when you execute this, you're going to apply its amount to add it on top of the balance in the model, which will go from 150 into 200.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
Makes sense? Okay, very good.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, so now let's do the first undo together. Okay, let's now use maybe pink. What's going to happen when we do undo? So whenever you do undo or redo, you're not going to grow the history size anymore, right? You're going to actually start moving the cursor position a little bit. So what you can think about conceptually, so far the cursor is actually pointing to this particular command conceptually, right? When we do undo over here, let's review what the undo should do. The undo over there, so the current cursor position is actually 2. So that's definitely not less than 1, so we are okay. So now we can do the undo. And then model.history, and then, okay, let me just do that. Now let's compare. When I say model.history, and then cursor, model.position, okay, let me just be precise. Model.cursor position, and then undo, right? We used to call just execute, but now we are calling undo. The undo, if you look at the code over here, let's go to the deposit command over here. You can see for the undo, we're doing exactly the opposite, right? So remember the amount has been saved in those command objects already. So we got pretty much enough. That's what we got to do, okay? Let's try the first one. When you say model.history, right, we are really, so we are really doing this. Oh, there should be another command. Sorry, I forgot to draw that. Think about, we basically got undo over here. So that means we got one command over here, which is ETF undo. That one there also has the model, right? And that one there is really pointing to, again, Singleton is pointing to the same model, okay? And then model.current position, the cursor position will be actually 2 at the moment. And then when you say undo, you're basically calling model.history, which is this particular array, go to position 2, which is pointing to this particular command objects, right? Deposit command. And now, in order to apply the undo, we need to subtract 50 from whatever the balance is. So we're going to subtract 50 from 200. That's what we're going to do, okay? And then, so what we're going to do is apply the 50 here, and then, so that'll be from 200 back to 150. So that's the first undo, okay? After this, we should also decrement the cursor, right? So we should also decrement the cursor from 2 to 1. So you can think about the cursor has been moved from here to over here, all right? Guys, any questions about the first undo? And then we'll do the second undo very quickly for completeness. Sam, are you okay for the first undo?
Yes, Professor, I'm okay.
Very good, very good. Yeah, I hope you don't mind me calling you because you asked me this question before. Okay.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, very good. So let's now do the second undo quickly, and then I will keep my promise. I'll also tell you, understand the acceptance test in just a moment. Let's do one more. Let's say I use red. If I do the second undo, number one, I'm going to, how about I put it here? I'm going to create the ETF undo objects once more. And then that one there also got its model reference, again, Singleton, so it's pointing to over here, right? And then we're calling exactly the same line over here, exactly the same. Remember? We're going to basically, for the undo, you're just going to call the undo, just the same line. But now we know that the index has been decremented to 1 from the previous undo. So now it will be, rather than 2, it's going to be 1. So what that means is, so now we're going to say model.history at position 1 undo. So model.history is pointing to this array over here, and now the cursor position is simply just 1. So it's now going to point to this particular command object, right? And then that one there, the amount is 150, which means we're going to subtract 150 from the current balance, which has been updated already from the previous one, right? So 150 minus 150 would be 0. So after that, we're going to get 0 from this. Okay, so that's about it. And then, of course, we're going to decrement from 1 over here back to 0. So now if I try to call another undo, for example, if I do that, you can see the 0 over here is going to say current position 0 less than 1 is going to be true. So you're going to get the error, right? So that makes sense. Okay, guys, any question about how everything works together at a runtime? The most important thing to really take home is how the singleton pattern works. The singleton pattern is there's only a single model objects here that's being used by all the ETF commands and also by the undo redo commands you created in your model cluster. Okay, so hopefully that will help. All right. Okay, I will take some time to talk about acceptance test, but I do have one question here on the quiz. So Ovek, let me take a look. If we had another deposit after the first undo, good, very good. So that one there, I do want to talk about it, yes. Ovek's question goes like this. That's actually part of the improvement I would like to say. Okay, let me just talk about it right now. Let's only focus on the history array. Very good. History, let's say if somehow we got a history of, let's say 3 different commands, for example. Let's say we got, let's say deposit, let's say 200, right? And also we got deposit 150. And then we got another one over here, deposit 20, 20. Okay, doesn't matter. Let's say the cursor position, let's say conceptually is now pointing to here, right? So now, if we say undo the first time, if I say undo, we are going to call undo for this particular command, right? We're going to call undo over here. And then we're going to move the current position, cursor position from here to here. Okay, that makes sense. But now here's the question. What if after the undo, I just do another deposit? Let's say 10. Ovik, I believe that's your question, right? Good. Guys, any idea? I think this is somehow covered in the chapter, but I just want to study that together with you. So even if you haven't read a chapter, you can tell me what intuitively should you do in this case. Clear the right, exactly. So now think about once you have undone this one already, right? Once you have undone this one already, so now you're here. If you just do another deposit over here, so that means this part, everything to the right should be cleared. Okay, that's something you got to be careful, right? So now for the green one, what's going to happen is we're going to, you can think about, we're going to clear the history over here, clear that, okay? Clear whatever that's to the right. And then what you're going to do is you're going to grow again, and this one here is going to be another deposit command. And then this one here is going to be 10. And then the next execute, yes, you're right. So now if you do deposit here, so now after this deposit, you will actually have to move the cursor position to here, right? So now the next one, if you try to really do undo, you're going to undo this particular 10, right? Okay, guys, I think this scenario here is very important. So in order to clear the history to the right of the last undo, in order to clear the history, you might need a loop sometimes, but I'll leave that implementation detail to you. But conceptually, you should know that, let's say if this is last undo, and I got so many things to the right, so before I can insert this new command over here, I need to clear all the rest to the right, first of all, in order to put in the new command. Okay, that's the idea. Ovek, is that good? Very good. I think that's a good question. I'm glad you asked. Okay, so guys, let me just say very quickly. So far we talked about this simple demonstration over here. I hope that really gives you enough idea to continue. So now let me suggest some improvement, right? For your final submission, number one, for the command inheritance hierarchy, so rather than having a single class over here, you should really get maybe command followed by something over here, and something over here, right? Number one. Number two, exactly what I said, just Ovek was just ask. undo followed by a new command should cause a partial clearance of the history, right? So that's exactly what I just demonstrated in this page over here. And number 3, you may want to decouple all the history-related features to a separate module. So let me be precise over here. So now if you look at, for example, if you go to the deposit command over here. Sorry, not deposit, bank. If you go under model and go to bank, you can see on the features over here under undo redo. I would say these features over here should not belong to the bank. You may want to put them somewhere else, maybe into another module. Okay, that'll be my another suggestion for improvement. All right. Okay, finally, I did promise to Amir that I'm gonna talk about how the game works. So let me at least do one. Okay, as I said, I will try to finish before 2:45. Okay. Okay, so now let's go to the remote labs. Okay, I'll show you exactly how you can do this. You can also, let me reconnect. Okay. So there are 2 things I think you will need in order to do this exercise. I'll show it to you. So let me show you the 2 things you need, and then I will start demonstrating. Just give me one moment. So if you go to your starter code for your lab number 3, you will see, for example, we gave you 3 cases, AT001, AT002, and also AT003. So I think that maybe I only got time to just go over AT001. So Amir, maybe you can try to go over AT002 yourself, and then you got any questions, either post on the forum or we can discuss during office hour. Okay, let's do AT001. If you look at AT001, that one simply suggests the commands that you will need to type. You're going to do undo, followed by redo, and also followed by play, and etc. Right? So this will be the list of commands you will need. And the other one is the AT001 that expected. Think about every intermediate state over here will be the output from the out routine of your model class, right? So that's why I also recommend you also want to follow the first part of the lecture this week, at least the lecture number 6, where I do talk about the difference between abstract events, abstract UI, and also the abstract states. So I think that'll be also beneficial to your understanding. Okay, let me just do this now, and then we'll see how we can understand the game. Okay, quickly. Let me just move this back just a little bit later. So let me just close this, and then I'll move it here. So now, assuming that you have already finished the starter video, and then let me just go to command line over here. So CD 3311 F20. Oops, sorry. Okay, let's go to lab number 3. Lab number 3. Okay, that's kind of the starter you got, right? And if you go into CD space defender 1. Okay, so now we got Oracle there. Let me just put this aside so you can see exactly what I'm trying to do. So this is your AT001.txt, right? You know what? Let me try to adjust this a little bit so you can get the best out of it. Okay, I like that. Okay, so I'm going to follow this sequence over here. Let's try to understand how the game plays. So if I say oracle.exe, if you don't have the permission for that, as I showed you already, you can say change mod 777. If I say -I over here, if I do that, so you would say, first of all, welcome to Space Defender version 1. You can actually finish this line right away by changing the out routine, right? Easily. So let's try to do undo over here. So if I say undo, so Amir, you can see that since we haven't really started playing yet, so that's why when you say undo, it's going to tell you you cannot undo anything. Nothing has been done, right? You said you have no sense about this game. So why don't we just go over this sequence over here, just explain some bits and pieces to you. I think that you will have to read about the section about the problem. And then if you got any more clarification needed, you can come to me, okay? Okay, let me just do for everybody else as well. So I do undo. Undo is not possible. If I say redo, it's also not possible. I'm still in the game, right? So now I can say play. So I can say I want to have 5 rows, 10 columns, and then the maximum number of units the Starfighter can move will be 5 units. So that means vertical plus horizontal should be exactly no more than 5. And then each projectile after I fire can move at most 3 units. Okay, you can see the initial position for the Starfighter. You can see from the description for the PDF. It's always in the middle for the row, right over here. You will see the formula in the problem description about how you can calculate it, but it's always the always the first column. Okay, so now if I say fire basically the Starfighter will remain in this position over here, and then it's going to fire a projectile, which is always to the immediate right. Okay, if I say fire, you can see what's happening here is you can see the Starfighter is still here, but there's a projectile to its immediate right. So now every turn can be divided into 2 parts. The first part, all the projectile will move. And then the second part, the Starfighter will actually be invoke some command, either fire, move, or abort. Okay. Okay, so now let's try another one. If I say move, A1, let's see let's predict what's going to happen. I'm basically saying the Starfighter over here wants to move to A1 over here. Would that be allowed, first of all? If you want to move from C1 to A1, you're moving only 1 and 2, only 2 units. So that's actually allowed by the maximum of 5 units that's given to the Starfighter. So that's okay, right? So we can definitely move there. But remember, that's only part 2. But for part 1, any projectile that has been fired, they will also move 3 units, as we specify over here. So that means we should also expect to see this particular projectile should move 1, 2, and 3 to here, right? These are the 2 things we expect to see. So if I say that, you can see exactly the Starfighter move to here, and also the projectile move to here, right? So Amir, are you okay so far? Just about the game so far, right? Just some simple movement, I hope. Okay, very good. And then let's try to see the next one. If we simply say pass, okay, what a pass will do, you can see if you compare the grid over here, if you compare, this is before the pass, this is after the pass. The Starfighter doesn't move if you pass. However, the projectile over here still moves 1, 2, and 3. They still move to this particular slot. So Starfighter, the projectile will still move even if you pass. Okay, so now we can do undo and redo. So now if I say undo, I'm going to undo the pass, which means the projectile is actually going to move 3 spaces back, right? So if I say undo, you can see exactly what happened, right? And then if I say redo, in this case, it's redoing the pass again. So now the projectile is again going to move back to here, right? Over here. If I say redo, it's going to move to here, right? Exactly, undo and redo. And then if I say undo again, undo the pass, so it moves back to here. And now if I say undo one more time, not only that the projectile is going to undo back to here, but also the Starfighter is also going to go back here, right? It's really basically undoing the move over here. Let me show it to you. If you remember a few comments back, it's really undoing this particular move to A1, okay? So now if I do that, I say another undo, you can see the Starfighter also goes back to here, right? And then the projectile also goes back. Okay, so now this is kind of what OFAC was suggesting. So we have maybe we have already 2 commands actually in the 1 or 2 commands in the history. So now we are basically at the end of the undo. We cannot undo anymore. So if you say undo again, oh, actually you can do it. If you say undo again, you can see nothing to undo. But now if you try to do a new command, for example, if I say I want to move maybe to, for example, just say B1. So now, according to what we said previously, in this case, if you try to say, think about what's happening here. So the cursor position basically is already here, nothing to undo. So now, if you try to do a new command, for example, if you say move, so that means you're going to clear all the history over here that's to the right, and then just add this particular move command in the array for the array of history. Okay, that's what's going to happen. Okay, so now if you just say move again, you're going to just going to move to B1. and etc. Okay, so that's basically the essence for the first one. Okay. Okay, guys, any questions? I have one more thing to show you, and then I'll let you go. One more thing. Okay. Can I just play with the game once more? And then this is some acceptance test I created before the session. And I'll make this one available to you as well, just to help you. Okay. So what this will do, I'll play together with you, okay, to play the game. Okay, apparently this is not covered in the starter test, so that really illustrates the point. You really want to create your own test cases to test the game. So now if I try this, okay, let's say I say play 5, 10, 5, 3. Okay. Oh, sorry, typo. Okay. Play 5, 10, 5, 3. Okay, if I do that, right? So now I'm saying that the maximum units you can move for the Starfighter will be 5. Okay, so now if I say move to A4, would that be okay? If I want to move to A4? Well, basically, if you want to go to A4 over here, think about how many units you have to move. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. So that seems to be okay, right? If I say move A4, so that's fine. Let's say I want to now go from A4 to D1. Would that be allowed? If you want to go from A4 to D1, what would it take? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. You need 6 units. In that case, if you try that, it's going to tell you it's an error. The location to move is actually out of the Starfighter's movement range. So that should be, like, for example, some test case you gotta do by yourself. All right. All right. Let's now read through. That's all about the agenda I would like to go over. If you got any more questions about how to read the acceptance test that we gave to you, either you can post on the forum, so in which case maybe Kevin or myself will try to explain to you. Otherwise, you can drop by my office hour today. Okay. One more question for Amir on the chat. Is it fair to say in this game I do not need to implement any game algorithm? So Amir, what do you mean by that? What do you mean not to implement any game algorithm? What do you mean by that? So if you feel comfortable, feel free to speak up. Otherwise, I'll just read through your message. What do you mean any AI? I'm not too sure what you meant by this. In fact, you actually have to implement. There's no artificial intelligence over here. It's not that complicated. Basically, just read the description in the problem in the PDF, and then it tells you exactly how the game works. You just encoded it. There's nothing complicated about AI. No, I don't think so. All right, very good. So guys, any more questions for me? Thank you for staying. I really hope this will help. If you got any more questions about Lab3, if there's more related to your own design, just email me or drop by my office hour. If there's more about clarification of the problem, you can just post on the course forum, and then me and Kevin will try to answer. All right? All right, thank you, and then I will speak to you later.